The blue-green marble of Elora Prime hung serenely against the void of space, its twin moons casting long shadows across sprawling crystal cities and vast purple forests. In the central observatory of Capital City, Senior Detector Jin stared at his console with widening eyes, the color draining from his face. "Ambassador Teller, you need to see this," Jin called out, his voice cracking. Ambassador Teller glided across the observatory floor, her tall, willowy frame and iridescent skin marking her as a purebred Eloran. Unlike humans, Elorans moved with fluid grace, as if perpetually underwater. "What troubles you, Jin?" she asked, laying a six-fingered hand on his shoulder. Jin pointed to the long-range scanner display. "This energy signature. I've never seen anything like it." The display showed thousands of dark objects moving in perfect formation, consuming everything in their path. Asteroids, small moons, abandoned stations, all vanished as the swarm passed through. "The Voidborn," whispered Teller, the word barely audible. They were supposed to be a myth. Within hours, the Eloran High Council gathered in their circular chamber. Scientific advisors projected three-dimensional models showing the Voidborn's trajectory directly toward Elora Prime. The council chamber erupted into chaos. "We must evacuate," shouted one councillor. "Impossible. We have 8 billion people and limited ships," countered another. Teller rose from her seat, her voice cutting through the noise. "We must call for help. The Galactic Council has sworn to protect all civilized worlds from extinction-level threats." The transmission was sent on all emergency frequencies, a desperate plea encoded with Elora's exact coordinates and detailed scans of the approaching Voidborn swarm. Teller recorded the message herself, her normally melodic voice tight with urgency. "This is Ambassador Teller of Elora Prime. A Voidborn swarm approaches our world. We have limited defensive capabilities and request immediate military assistance under the Galactic Alliance Protection Treaty. We estimate 14 standard days before they reach our outer defense perimeter. Please respond." Days passed. The Voidborn drew closer. Each day, Teller returned to the communications center, hoping for responses. Each day, the screens remained silent. On the 6th day, Chief Communications Officer Day approached her with confusion on his face. "Ambassador, we're receiving scattered signals that our message has been received by at least 27 Council worlds. They've acknowledged receipt but sent no response." Teller's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, an Eloran sign of distress. "They're ignoring us, but why?" A junior analyst spoke up. "I've been monitoring unofficial channels. There are rumors that the Council powers fear any response would redirect the Voidborn toward their territories instead." The truth settled over the room like a shroud. The great civilizations, the Axioni Confederation, the Ven Empire, the Quaros Alliance, were pretending not to hear Elora's cries for help, hoping the Voidborn would satisfy their hunger with just one planet. On the 9th day, as engineers worked frantically to upgrade Elora's modest planetary defense grid, Day burst into Teller's office. "Ambassador, we have responses," he shouted, his professional demeanor forgotten in excitement. "The Council?" Teller asked, hope flaring. "No." "Two others," Day replied, activating the hollow display. The first message showed a human woman with short, black hair and determined eyes. The background revealed a utilitarian bridge of a spacecraft, nothing like the ornate command centers of Council vessels. "This is Captain Sun of the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call. The nations of Earth have voted unanimously to send aid. Our fleet is small and our technology limited by galactic standards, but we stand ready to help. Expected arrival, 3 days. Teller blinked rapidly. "Earth? They barely achieved faster-than-light travel a century ago. The Council doesn't even consider them advanced enough for membership." The second message was even more surprising. A visual collage of 15 different species, each speaking one line of the message in sequence. Their appearances varied wildly. Beings with too many eyes, not enough limbs, exoskeletons, scales, and features that defied easy description. "We are the Scrap Heap Flotilla. We heard your call when others pretended deafness. We know what it's like to be abandoned. Our ships are coming. We bring fighters, engineers, and rage against the darkness. Not all who wander are lost. Some just weren't wanted. Day looked at Teller in confusion. The flotilla, those outcasts and nomads, why would they help us? Teller watched the messages replay, studying the determined faces of both humans and the assorted outcasts. Because they understand something the Council has forgotten. The galaxy survives only when we protect each other. 3 days later, the first human ships dropped out of light speed at the edge of the Aloran system. Their vessels looked cobbled, together compared to sleek Council designs, additional weapons bolted onto civilian ships, cargo haulers repurposed as troop carriers. But they came in numbers nobody expected, hundreds of small craft swarming from larger carriers. A day later, the flotilla arrived, their vessels even stranger, no two alike. Some appeared ancient, others incorporating technology that seemed experimental or forbidden. What they lacked in uniformity, they made up for in creativity and firepower. Captain Sun's shuttle landed at the capital spaceport, where Teller waited. The human was shorter than Teller expected, barely reaching the ambassador's shoulder, but carried herself with undeniable authority. "Why did you come?" Teller asked without preamble. "You risk extinction for a world you've never even visited." Sun smiled grimly. "On Earth we have an old saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We're not going to do nothing." Behind Sun, more shuttles landed, disgorging humans in combat gear and various species from the EE. Flotilla, four-armed Krivaki engineers carrying impossible tools, reptilian Dushak warriors with ceremonial blades, hovering mist collective intelligences pulsing with light. "We have 8 days before the Voidborn arrive," Sun said, watching her unlikely army assemble. "Let's make them count." Above, in orbit, Earthships and flotilla vessels moved into defensive formations, their crews preparing for a battle few expected to survive. The Voidborn approached relentlessly, while across the galaxy, Council members watched from afar, waiting to see if their gamble, sacrificing one world to save their own, would succeed. They had no way of knowing that their calculation had failed. To account for humanity's stubborn refusal to let innocents die, or the burning memory of abandonment that drove the outcasts of the flotilla to stand when greater powers fell to their knees. The first Earth ship to dock at Elora Station was the EDF Dauntless, its hull scarred from hastily removed civilian markings. Commander Hana stepped onto the gleaming platform where Ambassador Teller waited, flanked by anxious Eloran officials. Unlike the tall, willowy Elorans with their iridescent skin, Hana stood compact and solid, her weathered face telling stories of battles the diplomatic Elorans couldn't imagine. "Your ships," Teller began, her melodic voice faltering as she gazed beyond Hana to where dozens of Earth vessels were taking position. "They're so old, small, ugly." Hana finished with a tight smile. "Yeah, we know. Half of them were mining rigs and passenger liners a month ago." An Eloran official named Gyro stepped forward, data tablet in hand. "Our scans show minimal energy shielding, outdated weapon systems and hull materials that wouldn't withstand even a glancing hit from Voidborn energy lances." Hana nodded. "That's why we don't plan on getting hit." She tapped a command into her wrist device, projecting a hologram of Earth ships in formation. "We've retrofitted our vessels with experimental tech. Those outdated weapons have been modified to fire in unpredictable patterns. Our engineers call it controlled chaos." "Theory?" Before the Elorans could respond, the station's docking alert blared. Through the viewport, they watched an enormous patchwork vessel approach, easily 3 times the size of Earth's largest ship, and shaped like nothing the Elorans had ever seen. Parts of it glowed with strange energies, while other sections seemed held together by little more than hope and welding seams. "The flotilla flagship has arrived," Hana announced, checking her device. "Better brace yourselves. They're not what you're expecting." The docking tube extended, metal grinding against metal in a way that made the Eloran technicians wince. When the airlock opened, the temperature in the reception area dropped noticeably. First came the Krathak, massive four-armed warriors with crystalline growths protruding from leathery skin. Their leader, a scarred giant called Rock, stomped, forward on hooved feet, ceremonial blades clinking against segmented armor. The Voidborn took 3 Krathak colony worlds, Rock growled, voice like stones grinding together. We remember our dead, we bring their rage. Next emerged a group of Vex, spindly insectoid beings with compound eyes that reflected light in hypnotic patterns. Their exoskeletons had been augmented with technology that hummed and pulsed with energy. The lead Vex engineer, Nix, moved with unsettling precision. Council banned our research, Nix clicked, translator struggling with the complex harmonics. Called our methods abominable. Now they need abominations to save them. More species filed in. Vapor-based mist collectives drifting in containment fields, reptilian Dushak warriors with tactical computers grafted to their skulls, even a pair of quantum ghosts, beings that existed partially in another dimension, their translucent forms flickering in and out of visibility. Teller's staff backed away, years of Galactic Council propaganda about these dangerous species overwhelming their diplomatic training. Even Teller seemed frozen, her inner eyelids flickering rapidly. Hannah stepped into the uncomfortable silence. Ambassador, every being here was cast aside by the Council. Some for being too aggressive, others for pushing boundaries of acceptable science. Earth was just ignored for being too young. But right now we're all that stands between your world and extinction. In the command center, an hour later, chaos reigned. A Krathak officer slammed his fist down on a holographic display, shattering the projector. Your battle formation makes no sense, he roared at the Eleran defense chief. You bunch ships together like frightened herd beasts. Nearby, Vex engineers were taking apart Eleran sensor equipment, ignoring protests as they integrated their own tech. Primitive designs, Nix commented. Cannot detect Voidborn phase shifting, we improve. Commander Hana watched the growing discord with a tight expression. Above them, through the transparent ceiling, the combined fleet hung in orbit. Earthships, flotilla vessels, and Elora's modest defense forces, all maintaining separate formations. Enough! Hana's voice cut through the arguments. The Voidborn aren't 6 days away anymore. New scans put them at 4 days, accelerating. While we fight each other, they consume everything in their path. She strode to the central platform and activated her own projector. Look at this. 2 hours ago, they engulfed Elora's outer mining moon. 73 miners were stationed there. The room fell silent as footage played, the dark swarm enveloping the small moon, breaking it apart piece by piece until nothing remained. I've fought in wars on Earth, Hana continued quietly. But I've never seen anything like this. They don't conquer, they don't negotiate, they consume and move on. Rock the Krathak moved closer, looming over the humans and Ellerans alike. The Council fears them because Voidborn cannot be reasoned with, cannot be bribed or threatened. They are like universe itself, inevitable. Not inevitable, Nix clicked, compound eyes reflecting the hologram. Complex system. All systems have flaws. A young Eleran technician named Saul hesitantly spoke up. Our teachings say these species are dangerous because they're unpredictable and don't follow Council protocols. But the Council abandoned us and the Voidborn follow protocols perfectly. They attack and consume exactly as expected. Ambassador Teller studied the unlikely allies surrounding her. Humans with their resourcefulness, Krathak with their battle fury, Vex with their forbidden innovations, and made a decision. Eleran Command will submit to joint leadership, she announced. Commander Hana, War Leader Rock, Engineer Nix form your War Council. Our survival depends on your unpredictability. Over the next 3 days, the combined fleet transformed. Human engineers worked alongside Vex scientists installing experimental reality phase disruptors on Eleran defense platforms. Krathak warriors trained Eleran security forces in close-quarter combat techniques forbidden by Council regulations. The quantum ghosts shared their partial dimensional shifting with scout ships, allowing them to briefly fade from normal space, a technique that might help them get close to the Voidborn. On the observation deck of Elora Station, Hana stood beside Teller, watching shuttles zip between larger vessels as final preparations were made. Why did the Council really abandon you? Hana asked. Elora's location isn't particularly strategic. Tella's luminescent skin dimmed slightly. We possess something they fear more than the Voidborn: change. Our scientists recently developed biotechnology that would make several council monopolies obsolete. They opened trade negotiations to access our research, but we refused their terms. So they left you to die, Hana concluded. Yes, Tella said simply. But you came, all of you, species we were taught to fear or dismiss. A proximity alarm blared throughout the station. On the main viewer, space itself seemed to darken as the first wave of the Voidborn swarm appeared at the edge of the system, 2 days ahead of predictions. They're adapting, Hana murmured, already moving toward the command center. Moving faster than we calculated. Across the combined fleet, crews rushed to battle stations. Earth ships formed their chaotic, unpredictable patterns. Flotilla vessels, powered-up weapons systems that bent the laws of physics. Helleran defense platforms activated their newly installed disruptors. As the Voidborn advanced, devouring the outer system's debris fields and growing with each consumption, the unlikely alliance prepared to make its stand, outcasts and underdogs, against a force that had sent the mighty Galactic Council into hiding. The first wave of the Voidborn emerged from the darkness of space like a living oil slick, their ships, if you could call them that, moving with perfect synchronization. No two were exactly alike, yet they functioned as one vast organism, stretching across thousands of kilometers. From the command deck of the EDF Dauntless, Commander Hana watched the enemy approach. The Voidborn outnumbered the defenders nearly 20-1. All ships maintain formation, she ordered, her voice steady despite the odds. Remember the plan. Conventional tactics won't work against a hive mind. We need to create chaos. The defenders had arranged themselves in what appeared to be standard defensive positions, except nothing was standard about this fleet. Earth vessels had been modified with reflective hulls that confused enemy targeting systems. Krathak warships bristled with weapons forbidden by council regulations. Vex science vessels hummed with experimental technology. Even the Eloran defense platforms had been retrofitted with jury-rigged enhancements. They're accelerating, reported Lieutenant Day, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. Outer perimeter contact in 30 seconds, Hana nodded. Execute Operation Thunderstorm. Across the fleet, captains acknowledged the order. What happened next defied every principle of organized space combat. The human ships broke formation, each vessel following seemingly random trajectories. Some powered down completely, drifting like dead hulks. Others accelerated to dangerous speeds, engines pushed beyond safety limits. From the Krathak warships, thousands of small drones deployed, each broadcasting conflicting electromagnetic signatures. The Voidborn swarm hesitated, their perfect formation disrupting as they processed the confusing data. It's working, Day whispered. They're breaking pattern. Before the Voidborn could adapt, the Vex unleashed their contribution. Reality phase disruptors that temporarily shifted sections of space into alternate dimensional states. Portions of the Voidborn fleet suddenly found themselves fighting against altered physical laws, their coordination faltering. Hana allowed herself a tight smile. Now, while they're disorganized, all ships, weapons free, the combined fleet opened fire. Human railguns launched projectiles at near-light speeds. Krathak plasma cannons tore burning holes through enemy formations. Vex beam weapons bent around obstacles to strike targets from impossible angles. Even the Eloran defense platforms contributed. Their usually modest weapons now amplified by flotilla technology. For 20 glorious minutes, the defenders held their own. Voidborn ships were destroyed faster than they could be replaced. But the hive mind was learning, adapting to the chaotic tactics, finding patterns where there shouldn't be any. "Commander," Day's voice was urgent. "They're changing formation, targeting our flanks." On the tactical display, the Voidborn swarm was transforming, individual ships merging into larger structures with greater firepower and resilience. "They're evolving mid-battle," muttered Hana. "All ships fall back to secondary positions. Prepare for close engagement." At that moment, an urgent communication cut through the tactical chatter. "This is Captain June of the Eloran civilian transport. Daybreak. We have engine failure and 400 refugees aboard. cannot maintain retreat velocity, requesting immediate assistance. The massive transport was already being surrounded by void-borne vessels, their dark tendrils beginning to attach to its hull. Its position made rescue nearly impossible without sacrificing a significant portion of the defensive line. Before Hana could respond, another voice broke in. "Daybreak, this is Captain Sung of the EDF Valiant. We're moving to your position. Hold tight." Hana stared at the display in disbelief. The Valiant was one of Earth's largest warships, carrying over 500 crew members. Captain Sung, "Disengage. Immediately, the risk is—" "With respect, Commander," Sung interrupted. "I'm already committed. Valiant out." On the screen, the human warship accelerated directly toward the surrounded transport, firing all weapons to clear a path. The Voidborn reacted, converging on this new threat. The Valiant's shields flared and died under the assault, but it pressed forward, hull blackening from direct hits. "What are they doing?" asked Ambassador Teller, who had joined Hana on the command. "Deck, they cannot survive that concentration of fire." Hana's jaw tightened. They know. The Valiant reached the Daybreak, positioning itself between the transport and the bulk of the Voidborn attackers. "Transport secured," reported Captain Sung, his voice now crackling with interference. "Daybreak, our engineers are transferring to assist with repairs. Estimated time 4 minutes. For those 4 minutes, the Valiant absorbed punishment meant for the Daybreak. Its weapons systems failed one by one. Hull breaches appeared across multiple decks. Still, it maintained position, a shield of metal and flesh. Daybreak to Valiant. "Engines restored. We're moving out." As the transport accelerated away, the Valiant's remaining engines ignited one final time, not to escape, but to drive deeper into the Voidborn formation. "All hands, this is Captain Sung. Core overload initiated. It's been an honor." The explosion tore through space, taking with it the Valiant and nearly 100 Voidborn ships. The blast created a temporary gap in the enemy formation, allowing several defender vessels to regroup and establish a new defensive line. In the shocked silence that followed, Teller stared at the fading light of the explosion. They sacrificed themselves and for people they never met. "That's what humans do," Hana said quietly. "We protect those who can't protect themselves." The battle raged on. Krathak berserkers launched boarding pods directly into Voidborn vessels, fighting hand-to-hand in corridors filled with the enemy's black ichor. Vex engineers deployed experimental weapons that bent space itself, creating micro-singularities that swallowed enemy ships whole. Quantum ghosts phased into Voidborn command structures, disrupting them from within before fading back to normal space. What they lacked in numbers, the defenders made up for in ferocity and unpredictability. Every species fought with techniques the Council had deemed too dangerous or unpredictable for civilized warfare. Yet here, against an enemy that knew no rules, these forbidden tactics were their only hope. Unknown to the defenders, their battle was being observed. Cloaked Council vessels hovered at the edge of the system, recording everything. Their captains and observers watched with increasing unease as outcasts and primitives held the line against a force the mighty Council had deemed unstoppable. "The humans show concerning levels of self-sacrifice," noted one Axioni observer, his crystalline features refracting light as he studied the battle data. "And these modifications to standard technology. They're achieving results our scientists claimed were impossible. The Voidborn are adapting more slowly than predicted," added a Ven Empire representative. "These chaotic tactics appear to confuse their hive mind." The Quaros delegate shifted uncomfortably. "If they somehow succeed, it will raise difficult questions about our decision to withdraw protection." As if to punctuate his concern, the IC defenders launched another coordinated attack. Human ships deployed massive electromagnetic pulse weapons, while Vex vessels fired dimension-shifting beams that caught the Voidborn in overlapping fields of distorted physics. The results were devastating, entire sections of the enemy fleet tearing themselves apart as conflicting laws of reality collided. "They're winning," whispered the Axioni observer in disbelief. But the battle was far from over. The Voidborn, learning from each encounter, began to concentrate their forces on key defensive positions. One by one, outlying defender ships were being isolated and destroyed. "Oh, we can't hold much longer," Day reported grimly. "Our lines are breaking." Hana studied the tactical display, searching for options. "We've hurt them, but there's still too many. We need something game-changing." At that moment, a communication arrived from the Vex flagship. Engineer Nix's compound eyes filled the screen, reflecting the chaos of battle around him. "Commander Hana," Nix clicked, "we have analyzed void-born patterns, found weakness in hive mind communication network, possible disruption point identified." For the first time since the battle began, Hana felt a glimmer of hope. "Tell me everything." The command center of the EDF Dauntless had transformed from an orderly military hub into a chaotic war room. Holographic displays showed the defenders' dwindling numbers against the still massive void-born swarm. Despite inflicting heavy damage, the Allied fleet was losing, ships disappearing from tactical screens faster than Hana could acknowledge their loss. Engineer Nix hunched over a makeshift laboratory table, compound eyes reflecting the blue glow of Vex technology. Beside the insectoid scientist stood Commander Hana, her uniform torn and stained with hydraulic fluid from emergency repairs. "Show me again," Hana demanded, pushing aside a tray of broken equipment. Nix manipulated the hologram, zooming in on a pulsing structure deep within the void-born formation. "Here, central node. All hive communication flows through this point, like brainstem to hive body." Tay, a particularly brilliant Vex scientist with distinctive gold markings on his exoskeleton, clicked in agreement. "We've analyzed their communication patterns. Short-range signals use quantum entanglement, unblockable, but long-range coordination relies on this central node, broadcasting through subspace channels." Hana studied the structure, a massive ship unlike any other in the void-born fleet, surrounded by layers of defenders. "If we destroy it—" "Temporary disruption only," Nix replied. "They build another. Minutes, perhaps hours. Not destruction." Tay clarified, mandibles clicking excitedly. "Infection. We've developed a biodigital virus that mimics their communication patterns but introduces errors, compound errors that multiply with each transmission." Ambassador Teller, who had been silently observing, stepped forward, like a lie that becomes more distorted each time it's repeated. "Precisely," Tay confirmed. "The virus would make coordination impossible. Individual ships would receive conflicting instructions. Some might attack each other, others would stop functioning entirely." Hana's eyes narrowed. "So we need to deliver this virus directly to that node? Through all those layers of defenders?" Nix and Tay exchanged looks. "Yes, physical connection required. No remote transmission possible." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Lieutenant Day was the first to speak. "That's a one-way trip." "I'll go," Hana said immediately. Teller touched her arm. "You can't. The fleet needs you." Before Hana could argue, the communication system crackled. "This is Rock of the Krathak. My warriors and I have been listening. We volunteer." Another channel opened. "Quantum Ghost Collective here. We can phase through solid matter for short periods. We should be part of this mission." Within minutes, volunteers from every species had come forward. Hana looked around the room, at faces alien and human alike, all willing to sacrifice themselves for a world most had never seen before this crisis. "We'll send a small, fast ship," she decided. "Mixed crew with the best skills for the mission." The team assembled within the hour. Lieutenant Jin, a human pilot known for pulling off maneuvers that defied physics. Rock, the massive Krathak warrior whose forearms could operate multiple weapons simultaneously. Tai, the Vex scientist who had helped develop the virus. Two quantum ghosts who called themselves simply Mist and Whisper. And Day, who had insisted on joining despite Hana's objections. Their vessel was the Needle, a modified scout ship with experimental stealth technology and engines that would burn out after a single high-speed run. In the launch bay, Hana addressed the Suicide Squad. "The virus needs to be connected directly to the node's main communication array," she explained, handing Tay a small pulsing device. "Once it's uploaded, get out if you can, but the mission matters more than our survival," Jin finished. "We understand, Commander. Hana looked each of them in the eye. The fleet will create a diversion to draw as many Voidborn away from the central node as possible. You'll have one chance at this. As the team boarded the Needle, Day hesitated at the airlock. Commander, if we succeed but don't make it back, tell everyone about how species from across the galaxy stood together when the Council turned away. Hana clasped Day's shoulder. Everyone will know. Now go make some trouble. The battle resumed with renewed fury. The remaining fleet launched an all-out assault on the Voidborn's left flank, drawing enormous numbers of enemy ships away from the center. Human vessels performed impossible maneuvers, Krathak warships unleashed their full arsenal, and Eloran defense platforms pushed their weapons beyond safe limits. Through this chaos, the Needle slipped away, its experimental stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible against the backdrop of battle. Jin piloted with supernatural precision, threading the tiny craft through debris fields and enemy formations. Approaching outer defense perimeter, Jin reported, voice steady despite the strain. Stealth holding, but they'll detect our engine. Signature soon. As predicted, a group of Voidborn scout ships peeled away from formation, moving to intercept. Before they could reach attack range, Mist and Whisper, the quantum ghosts, phased partially out of normal space. Their translucent forms drifted through the Needle's hull and into the void, appearing moments later inside the enemy vessels. The Voidborn ships suddenly went dark, their systems failing as the ghosts disrupted their internal workings. Path clear, Jin announced, proceeding to second layer. The deeper they pushed, the more concentrated the Voidborn defenses became. At the second perimeter, their stealth finally failed. Alarms blared as enemy weapons locked onto the tiny craft. "Cover me!" Jin shouted, pushing the engines beyond their limits. The Needle lurched forward, hull temperature rising as enemy fire grazed their shields. Rock moved to the weapons station, 4 arms operating different systems simultaneously. "Go! I will hold them!" The Krathak warrior unleashed a barrage. That momentarily cleared their path, buying precious seconds. The third perimeter brought disaster. A direct hit crippled the Needle's port engine. The ship spun wildly before Jin somehow regained control. "We can't take another hit like that," Day warned, frantically rerouting power from non-essential systems. "We don't need to," Tay clicked, pointing at the massive central node now visible through the viewport. "We're close enough." Jin nodded grimly. Plotting final approach. This will be rough. The Needle accelerated toward the node, trailing debris and venting atmosphere. Voidborn ships converged from all directions, but they were too late to stop the suicide run. With a bone-jarring impact, the Needle crashed into the central node's outer hull. "Breach secured," Day called out, sealing the damaged sections of their ship. "We have atmosphere in the forward compartment, but not for long." Tay gathered the virus device while Rock forced open the mangled airlock. Beyond lay the alien architecture of the Voidborn node, organic technology pulsing with dark energy. The key team moved quickly through corridors that seemed to reshape themselves, guided by Tay's sensor readings toward the central communication array. They met resistance. Voidborn drones emerged from the walls themselves, shapeless masses that solidified into weapon-bearing forms. Rock engaged them in close combat, crystalline blades slicing through the creatures' semi-solid bodies. "Keep moving," he roared as more drones appeared. "I will hold this position." The remaining team members pushed forward, Whisper phasing ahead to scout the path. Finally, they reached a massive chamber where thousands of tendrils connected to a pulsing central core. "The neural hub," Tay breathed. "The virus must be connected there." As they approached, the hub's defenses activated. Energy beams crisscrossed the chamber, forcing them to take cover. One struck Mist, the quantum ghost screaming in a frequency that hurt human ears as its form destabilized. "We need a direct path to the hub," Dee shouted over the chaos. Jin looked at the dying quantum ghost, then at the others. "I'll draw their fire. When you see an opening, run." Before anyone could stop him, Jin charged across the chamber, dodging energy beams with the same skill he'd shown piloting the Needle. The hub's defenses tracked him, momentarily creating a clear path to the central core. "Now!" Day pulled Tay forward as they sprinted toward the hub. They reached it just as Jin fell, his body smoking from multiple energy strikes. Tay worked frantically, connecting the virus device to the pulsing organic technology. The hub seemed to sense the intrusion, the entire chamber shuddering in response. "It's fighting the connection," Tay clicked urgently. "I need more time." Day looked back at the entrance where Rock's roars had gone silent, at Jin's motionless form on the chamber floor, at the defenses realigning toward their position. "How much more time?" she asked. 30 seconds to establish full connection." Day drew her weapon. "You'll have it." As Tay worked, Day stood guard, firing at incoming drones and dodging energy. Beams. 20 seconds. A beam grazed her leg, searing through uniform and flesh. 25 seconds. A drone got close enough to slash her arm before she destroyed it. "Connected," Tay announced. "Virus uploading." The hub pulsed erratically, its rhythm disrupted. Throughout the node, lights flickered and systems failed. Throughout the battle outside, void-born ships suddenly lost coordination, their perfect formations dissolving into chaos. "We did it," Day whispered, watching through a viewport as the hive mind began to collapse. "We actually did it." Across the galaxy, on secure observation vessels, Council representatives watched in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded before them. 3 weeks after the battle, the Grand Council chamber on Axion Prime glittered with crystalline opulence. Representatives from 50 Council worlds gathered in their finest ceremonial garb, a sea of exotic beings arranged in precise hierarchical seating. At the central podium, Supreme Councillor Vex pontificated about the successful containment of the void-born threat and the Council's strategic patience. While unfortunate losses were sustained at Elora Prime, the 12-foot Axioni continued, his voice resonating through the chamber. The Council's wisdom prevented a far greater catastrophe. By allowing the Voidborn to focus on a single target, we prevented the loss of multiple worlds. In the gallery, Commander Hana sat rigidly in her dress uniform, burn scars still visible on her face and hands. Beside her, Ambassador Teller's iridescent skin had dulled from weeks of exhaustion. They exchanged glances as the Supreme Councillor continued rewriting history. The brave defense of Elora, supported by Council intelligence and strategic guidance, has given us valuable insights into defeating this enemy, Vex declared. The Council will now implement a galaxy-wide defense protocol under our direct supervision. Hana's hand tightened around a small data chip. She leaned toward Teller. "Ready?" The Eloran ambassador nodded. "They dishonor our dead with these lies." At the back of the chamber, dozens of unusual figures waited. Krathak warriors standing uncomfortably in formal attire, Vex scientists with their experimental technology partially hidden, humans from Earth's fleet, and representatives from 7 younger civilizations that had arrived to help during the final days of battle. The Supreme Councillor was now outlining a new taxation plan to fund Council protection forces when Hana activated the device. Every screen in the chamber suddenly changed, displaying the desperate distress call Elora had sent weeks earlier. "This is Ambassador Teller of Elora Prime. A void-born swarm approaches our world. We have limited defensive capabilities and request immediate military assistance under the Galactic Alliance Protection Treaty." The recording continued, showing timestamp after timestamp of the message being received by Council worlds and their deliberate lack of response. The Supreme Councillor's voice rose in alarm. "This is an unauthorized transmission. Security, terminate." His voice cut off as the screens shifted to battle footage. Human ships sacrificing themselves to save Eloran civilians, Krathak warriors, fighting hand-to-hand against void-born drones. Vex scientists deploying experimental technology to protect stranger species. The final image showed the suicide mission team, Human, Krathak, Vex, and Quantum Ghost, in their last moment together before boarding the Needle. As the screens returned to normal, Hana stood. "The Council abandoned Elora Prime to die," she said, her voice carrying through the sudden silence. "You calculated that sacrificing one world was acceptable if it kept the threat away from your territories." She walked slowly toward the central floor, Teller beside her. "But humanity doesn't make those kinds of calculations. Neither do the so-called outcasts you've marginalized for centuries. We stand together, or we fall alone. From the back of the chamber, the diverse group of allies moved forward, filling the central floor in deliberate violation of Council protocol. A young Trillian representative, one of the late-arriving reinforcements, stepped forward. Trillian ships monitored this conflict from the beginning, she admitted, tendrils quivering with emotion. Our Council representative told us not to interfere, but when we saw humans and outcasts fighting to save strangers while we hid, her voice broke. We are ashamed. The Krethek leader, Rock, moved to stand beside Hana, his massive form dwarfing her. Council calls Krethek barbaric, says we too violent, too unpredictable. But when darkness comes, who fights? Not soft Council worlds with their rules and protocols. Warriors fight, outcasts fight, humans fight. The Supreme Councilor's crystalline features hardened. This dramatic display doesn't change galactic reality. The Council controls interstellar trade routes, technological standards, and defense. Protocols. Your emotional appeal cannot override centuries of established order. We're not trying to override your order, Hana replied. We're creating something new alongside it. Ambassador Teller stepped forward. Today, I formally announce the establishment of the Alliance of the Willing, an interstellar cooperative dedicated to mutual defense and the free exchange of ideas, technology, and culture. Murmurs spread through the council chamber as screens displayed the Alliance Charter. Unlike the strict hierarchical structure of the Council, the Alliance organization was shown as interconnected nodes with founding members, Earth, Elora, the flotilla species, and the 7 younger civilizations that had joined the fight, having equal standing. The Alliance will maintain headquarters on Elora Prime, Teller continued. All species are welcome, regardless of technological development or economic power. Our sole criterion for membership is the willingness to stand together against existential threats. The Supreme Councilor's voice cut through the growing noise. This is absurd. A coalition of primitives and outcasts cannot hope to— Zoravia requests immediate membership in the Alliance, interrupted a councillor from the mid-tier seating, standing abruptly. As does Nimbala, called another. Within minutes, representatives from 11 council worlds had declared their intention to join, mostly younger civilizations who had long chafed under the strict control of the founding species. On the central display, a message appeared from a 12th world, not from its council representative but from its planetary parliament directly. Devaros stands with the Alliance. Our council delegate no longer speaks for us in this matter. The chamber erupted into chaos. The Supreme Councilor called for order, his amplified voice barely cutting through the noise. Hana turned to Teller with a small smile. I think that went well. 2 days later, aboard the newly recommissioned flagship Alliance Dauntless, formerly the EDF Dauntless, Commander Hana stood in a spacious conference room filled with representatives from 23 worlds. The walls displayed real-time footage of ships arriving in Eleran space. Vessels of all sizes and configurations, some bearing Council world markings hastily painted over. The latest intelligence reports confirm what we suspected, Hana explained, activating a holographic display showing a distant sector of space. The Voidborn are regrouping. The virus damaged their hive mind but didn't destroy it completely, and they're evolving, adapting to prevent the same attack from working twice. The display zoomed out to show the Voidborn's projected path, no longer targeting a single world, but moving toward the galactic core where most inhabited systems clustered. This time they're coming for everyone, she continued, Council worlds included. Ambassador Teller, now serving as Alliance Coordinator, touched a control panel. The display shifted to show Alliance defense preparations already underway, integrated, fleet exercises, technology exchange programs and fortification projects. We have an advantage the Council never exploited, she said. Diversity of approach. Each of our species thinks differently, fights differently, innovates differently. The Voidborn adapt quickly to any single strategy, but our combined unpredictability confuses their hive mind. A Trillian engineer expanded the display to show experimental technology being developed jointly by humans, Vex scientists, and engineers from 3 other worlds. We're already seeing breakthroughs from these collaborations that none of our species could have achieved alone. Rock, now Alliance Defense Coordinator, pointed to newly established outposts along the projected Voidborn approach vector. Early, warning network constructed. No more surprises, no more abandoned worlds. As the meeting progressed, Hannah studied the faces around her. Beings from across the galaxy, many who would have never spoken to each other under Council protocols. Working together, not from fear or obligation, but from shared purpose. On a screen behind them, footage played of Earthships training alongside former Council vessels, crews exchanging techniques and technologies once jealously guarded. Later, standing on an observation deck, as the stars of Elora's night sky reflected on her face, Hannah felt rather than heard someone approach. She turned to find Dai, one of He, the few survivors from the suicide mission, now walking with a permanent limp, her face bearing the marks of her ordeal. "Having doubts, Commander?" Day asked, noting Hannah's pensive expression. "Not doubts," Hannah replied. "Just thinking about cost. So many didn't live to see this." Day nodded, looking out at the stars. "When we volunteered for that mission, I didn't expect to come back. None of us did. But we all agreed it was worth it, to give everyone else a chance." Beyond the viewport, a newly arrived vessel from a former Council world decelerated into orbit, its running lights blinking a greeting to Alliance control. "The Voidborn are coming back stronger," Day observed. "Do you think we can win?" Hannah watched as an Earthship moved alongside the new arrival, guiding it to a docking position. "Look at what we've already accomplished. Species that never worked together building something new. The Council stood alone and planned to let worlds die one by one. We stand together." She turned to face Day fully. "The Voidborn are coming for all of us now, but this time all of us will be waiting for them. The end."